Amy.
Yay, you guys, we are here with the RockHill Publishing, and tonight we're going to speak with their romance authors. So Sandy, take it away.
Yay, I love this. I love the books that I read Zach's book. John, I haven't finished yours, and Athena's. So tonight we have Athena representing RockHill Publishing as she talks about the romance books. And Athena is an author, and she's written a number of books around romance and different aspects. And Athena, I want you to now tell us, you have your own philosophy around romance books, and how that kind of intertwines with all books. And I've heard you say that before, and I loved it. So I want you to say it now for all those who are attending the Miami Book Fair. So take it away, Athena.
Good evening. I'm Athena from RockHill Publishing, and I am the romance writer. We have other books that have romance.
With a beautiful romantic accent.
We have other writers who write about romance as well. I'm just writing romance in the modern day explanation. In the olden days, romance was more a type of narrative genre in literature that described mysteries and adventures and chivalry and all the things that were good and charitable and fair. So we considered those writings to be romantic novels. But nowadays we've had a shift and we've moved more into the personal romance. So the definition now is more of a love affair or an idealized love story between a couple, whatever the couple happens to be. So it's romance is a very powerful force, and for the love of women, wars have been fought before, as we know. For the love of a man, women have committed suicide, all those kind of things. So I enjoy delving into the psyche of people and seeing what makes them tick, what would push them over the edge for, you know, for the love of someone. And nowadays, of course, we have about 6 or 5 different types of romance. We have the contemporary, we have historical, suspense, erotic, and then of course in YA, we have a lot of romance as well. So we have a deep gully that we can explore, you know, relationships in because romance basically appears in everything, every movie, every book, even though it's not romance the main part of the story, but romance is what drives so many of the stories. So
Yay. So I love that. It is. It's true. So let's get an opinion. So Zach, what do you think about romance and romance books? And then John will be ready next. So.
I mean, I think that love makes the world go round. So, I mean, it's pretty essential. I mean, and it's funny that Athena says about there's different types of romance. Well, I'm Greek, and we have 6 words for love. So different types of erotas, is sexual love, agapes, is family love, philotimos, which is brotherly love, or type of love between people, which in many ways is some of the things that I wanted to show within my writing, and I do believe that it's a very important romance, and I think for me romance is not about the waiting for my prince to come and save me. Forget it. I'm not interested. You know, it's about, romance is about sacrifice, and it's a selfless form of sacrifice. And it's not a sacrifice with an end game in hand. You do it because you know, the greater love have no man than he laid down his life for another. You know, something like that. Whether it be man, woman, whatever it is. I mean, you know, it doesn't matter. It's about, or transsexual, whatever it is. I mean, it's about your fact that you're willing to sacrifice with no end game, and there's something beautiful about that.
I think you're absolutely right. There is something beautiful about it. So, John, your book is, as you've described it, hardcore science fiction. So, how does romance play a part in your book?
Yes, my novel is Dominion. It's really classified in under the genre of hard science fiction, as Sandy has just mentioned. However, we had sort of a pre-conversation off air about this and why I've been invited on this show. My novel happens to have a fairly strong underpinning sort of thematic arc that it deals directly with the humanitarian side of science fiction and how it affects people at a very personal level, which I think from a more globular or sort of an orbital perspective on what my esteemed colleagues are discussing, romance should just be that, how it really affects you at a spiritual level. Now, vehicle A is love. It's the most common one that we can all, really relate to. So when we speak of romance, we think, oh, our minds usually go right to love right away, right? But love is one component of the psyche. And I'm sure as Athena is a master in the art of romantic literature, she knows that, love cannot be registered without the darker side of the human psyche to balance against it. So, you can't really have one without the other, pretty much in the same storyline. Otherwise, it doesn't really give it as much gravitas. You need to have that kind of contrast and comparison as you go along. So that in itself, as a manifold, proves that romance really covers an entire spectrum of the human psyche and how it affects us at a very personal, spiritual level. And sorry for the classroom discussion. That's not what I meant to do. But in my novel, the main character goes through it when he's what we would consider what we call a soulmate, who's somebody that he's very much, he was a very shy individual. He's a brilliant man. He's a scientist. And he fit the bill as being slightly socially awkward, but he still was in love with this woman who actually came around to return the affection to him. They had one night that was wonderful together, and then this tragedy happens and her life is taken from him, and he's basically not recovering from it. And the book spends a lot of time in the text discussing, it goes literally from a really hard science approach and it dumps it right in your lap. And then suddenly you're reading a couple of chapters that are very soft and very tender and really taking you into their relationship together. And it's a little bit easier before it then goes back into the science again. And I did that to show, most importantly, that, just about everything we do because Zach actually hinted at it. He said, love makes the world go round. I would actually say that the humanity of our existence is what really makes the world go round, and that love is just one component. So I'm just adding to what he's saying there. I'm not refuting it.
That's great. So I want to hear some more, Athena, from you. And I know I saw on the website where you said you really like to call what you write epic melodrama. So I think that's great.
That's a great definition.
Well, I do have a question though I'm not a writer. I just work with authors and stuff, but being a romance writer, like when I think of romance, I think of the erotic romance, like 50 Shades of Grey and things like that. But I know there's clean romances and stuff like that. So how do you kind of pick what kind of romance you're going to write and run with it, and the challenges that you have writing romance and not getting, too dirty and explicit, but not super clean depending on your audience? So how do you kind of overcome those challenges being a romance writer?
Amy, that's a great point. And I want to just highlight a couple of things. Is when you talk about clean and you talk about dirty, it's very interesting because a lot of that is social. Like in the medieval times, the words, the F word and all those sort of things were not regarded as rude because everyone couldn't hide, didn't have privacy to do certain things. And so what was a swear word was talking about the god or talking about the saint's bones or something. That was something that was travesty or blasphemous. Whereas, so what starts off as being a good word can become a bad word, and a lot of it's relative to where you are at that moment in time. On another point, I don't view myself as a writer either. I'm a storyteller. Okay, so that as a storyteller, you're telling the sort of relative to what is important to those people at that time. And I think that when you're in a moment where you're romantically attached to someone, is that because you think they're hot? Oh yeah, she's a hot piece of ass, I want a bit of that. Or it's because actually you have a sense of loyalty and you have a sense of commitment. But those things happen over time. I mean, John was saying one night, they spent one night together and that created a whole book. That one night could be so intense that you actually makes a difference. And you can be with someone for 20 years and it has nothing. And then suddenly that person, how many times have you heard the story of the man or the woman who's been married for 20, 25 years and they have a divorce and then they meet someone else and within a month they've fallen in love, and it's like, how does that happen? I thought you only fell in love when you were young. No, you don't. You can fall in love at any age, at any time. It is not set in stone. Nothing is set in stone. And I think that's
as a matter of fact, some of the more beautiful love stories that I've read or movies are when an older man and woman get together and whatever's happened throughout their life, they, even some of the movies that are for children, the movie Up, when they my husband said, how can you be crying at a movie that's for kids? I'm like, well, they were in love all those years and then she died before they had a chance to fulfill their dream. So where do you get the information? I want all three of you to answer, like starting with you, John. You haven't said that much tonight, so where would you get the idea for a love story or how to bring romance into your book? Where do those come from?
Well, that's a little well, honestly, it's a little bit self-referential. I'll just sort of leave it at that.
Well, your story was, but let's say some other story that you've read, just in general.
Well, no, I mean, some of these experiences that I've gone through, I mean, I was in a relationship with a woman who attempted suicide, and it's not, Christine's not, it's not really, it's, you know what I mean? It's sort of, it's borrowed. We borrow from our experiences a lot of times in our creative scaffolding. You know what I mean? I mean, it's creative. I mean, Christine is the fictional character in the story, but I might have had that in mind. It was an influence there. You know what I'm saying? So I guess the short answer to your question is that it's a little bit self-referential and just existential. It's what I've gone through myself, and it affects my creative process. It's in part what I've experienced, and in part the fact that I have like an overdeveloped right hemisphere, and I create these whole universes out of them. So is that an okay answer? I mean, is that what?
No, I mean, there is no not okay answer. That was perfect. So, Athena, I know, and you're from South Africa. You're from Mozambique, and you moved to South Africa, and you were talking about some of what you write about comes from your experiences with both. So, for the romance, for the book that I love, All I Ever Wanted, where does Jesse come from?
Well, in every writing, something is always a part of you. Always. So something that is part of you, and then you start embellishing. I call it embellishing. So instead of having just a plain person in a plain pair of yoga pants and a t-shirt on, you start adding all the outfits onto this person. So you start adding layers, and then you borrow from people and events that you've witnessed, maybe in your own family or in people close to you, or even a headline that you saw, some amazing or disturbing story that you picked up in the newspaper or TV, and then you bring them all you kind of throw everything into a blender and you create this character. So there's a little bit of you, but there's a whole lot of everything else. So you started with the one color, let's say you took red, and then you started adding all the colors, and eventually you ended up with something that's brown, you know. So you can't separate the colors now anymore because everything is together. You can't unbake a cake, you see. So you know, there's no way to separate things like that. And because I understand that women, as they say, we fall in love between our eyes, which means it's in the brain. You know, it goes with emotion. And men, they like more, they are more based on appreciation. They like when you pay attention to them. So if you realize that there are subtle elements that separate men and women, you bring those together and you play with them. So now you show those things happening. And because people can relate when they see them in a book, then they enjoy that, because you're taking things from real life and you're turning it all into fiction, but you're actually telling the truth.
That was very deep.
I agree with that, but I think, you know, you girls, you do tend to sort of go on about how it's all about the emotion and the inside. But let's be honest, you do like a nice fit body, and you do like a good-looking guy. And let's call a spade on this. You know, we really do. Absolutely, yeah. So, you know.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm just making sure, because I mean, in this day and age of equality, you know, you like a fit guy. I mean, let's be honest.
No,
Is that why I'm alone, Zach?
No, it's because of your Ambi-Turner stuff. That's why you're not alone. Everyone's around you. Everyone loves you, John.
I'm sitting in a living room alone, and there's no one going to be joining me this evening.
Well, we're all alone right now, but we're amongst ourselves on the web. But I think one.
I know your point is duly noted. I think not to step on you. I'm really sorry, but I really think
you can step on me anyway. It's okay. Don't worry.
No, I really absolutely agree with Athena that there's just simply, and this is biologically, scientifically proven. As you know, I'm a man of science. You know, I cannot, but this is empirically data shown that the brain chemistry of a female is different when it comes to the love emotion than it is with males, and she nailed it. Males, unfortunately, are a little bit more gravitated towards aspects of vanity, but that doesn't make them vain. You know what I mean? But they want that sense of social standing and appreciation. It's wired into us evolutionarily, because if you want to get into calling a spade, this is why girls who are younger and have become of mating age seem to want to go with assholes. Have you ever heard that old saying? It's because an asshole tends to be higher in social ranking, and that person is a better defender at the cave entrance. It's an evolutionary signal.
But what is the defender, though, John? You see, the defender in the old day was you had someone who clubbed you over the head. The defender nowadays is he has a black Amex card.
Well, no, you're right. Well, that's absolutely true. The nature of the sword has changed, but the essence underneath it is still the same.
And the other thing, though, is that men and women are not equal by any stretch. We're not equal. We're complementary.
And you know, contrary to what people want to believe in some kind of liberal sphere or whatever philosophy or ideology that's going on, we spent 99.9999% of the last 750,000 years of human evolution with men going out and hunting parties and women being caregivers, staying at home, raising babies.
Which is why women are better at languages than men.
And that's why they're better at emotional perception and empathy between the eyes, which is precisely what Athena was saying.
But you know, but one of the things you said earlier, John, was something I have heard, is that women, girls, like the bad boys. The ones.
Yeah, I meant that tongue in cheek, you know.
I know, but I have heard that. I've always heard that, and I've seen that. I've got a granddaughter that's, you know, she's, you know, she always. But they also, I think, women like someone that needs to take care. They need to take care of them as well, because we like to help people, and you know. Athena, what were you going to say about that?
Some people don't realize sometimes that romances are actual subtle stories of good and evil, which is why so many people like to create love triangles, Why? Because there's an evil that you need, whether it's the evil girlfriend, the evil rich guy who just wants to buy everybody. And so in love stories, romances, you find a lot, there is an evil always trying to poke holes into this budding relationship. And so I enjoy, dealing into that, because it shows the people making the choices, because the choices you make is what's going to bring the result. So if you choose right, you might end up with the person you want. And if you choose wrong, well, then you'll be replaced by somebody better than you.
You know, you just made me think of this, Athena. That's a brilliant point. I've been watching cinema for years, and I'm always fascinated by repeating sort of thematic tropes, if you will. And it's a common thing to see this, you know, boy meets girl, girl meets boy, girl meets girl, boy meets boy, whatever it is. It goes through the story, they fall in love, and there's always something around 2/3 of the way through. It's almost formulaic where, oh my God, this can't be falling apart. Oh my God, it's everything's in the brink. If these two don't end up together, the galaxy's going to detonate as we know it. You know, reality will cease to. It's just a horrible thing. Will they recover? Will they recover? Will they recover? And he's just about to get on the airplane.
Yeah.
And she comes running on the airplane to say, you know, I was wrong, or maybe it's the other way around, or whatever. You know, there's some big dramatic resolution at the end because she finds a note or something that invalidates all her bad perceptions of whatever happened. You know what I mean? It's like, I was totally wrong, you know? So I think that's your point, is that the writer or the creator created this evil, you know, call it that with quotes, like it's something that offset all that passion, because it's like what we said at the beginning. I mean, not to toot my own horn, but I mentioned that you can't tell a love story without having that darker sort of perspective alongside of it. Otherwise, what's the point, right?
Zach, what were you going to say?
The dark bit's the fun bit, but it's also fiction has to make sense, but real life doesn't.
Yeah.
And the thing is, fiction is about
That's a good point.
it's about us having to what's the word? It's about we tell stories so that we can translate principles and ideas to the youth, to the young.
Idealized real life.
Exactly. So real life doesn't make sense. I mean, when I wrote the first of the Revelis Chronicles, you know, you rightly point out, Athena, I have a love triangle, right? You know, I have Antonis, I have Nicola, I have Katerina. And, you know, when I originally did the characters, I had it so that one character was super cool and the other one was like, bleh. And the guy got it because she fell for his like niceness, right? But they're like, that doesn't make sense. But I was basing it on a story I knew, and that's what happened. But that makes sense in real life, but it doesn't make sense in the book. Oh, it's got to make sense. You've got to balance it out. You've got to have a bit of good and a bit of bad here, and you've got to, as you say, you've got to layer it, and the red becomes brown, and you know, and everything. The yoga pants get a little tutu on it and some high heels. You know, it's that sort of stuff, and that's what happens. And I agree with you that that's how it's got to make sense for people so that they what it's about. And so that's why, as you say, John, a third of the way through. By the way, that is a standard movie script thing. It's split into 3 acts. I mean, when I wrote the first book, I spoke to an author, a journalist friend of mine, and I drew it out into like a script of 3 acts and 12 parts to each act. And he said to me, have you done a writing course? I was like, no, I'm just like, it's like logical, because I'm a science geek, obviously. That's my day job. And so it's like, whoa, okay. And it's those numbers all make sense. And so fiction has to make sense, but real life doesn't, because why is it when you're driving down the road that random guy shoots you in the street? That doesn't make sense, right? You know,
I really love what you said, Zach, right back there. That was a great, I'm going to steal that and use that and act like it's mine. I'm going to say, you know what? Fictional stories have to make sense, but real life can't. That's that's mine. I'm just pilfered that, and from now on, that's just one of my original. I'm just kidding, but
no, please. I mean, the thing is, John, we've been talking about it, you know, and with all of the artificial intelligence stuff, you know, you know, and all of that. And in terms of like working with my day job's a molecular biologist, and you know, been down in Austin with these guys and working with that about, you know, as I started working with Julie with her audio book, and I discovered that things don't make sense, and that when you think that they will, and I met this small startup, and then we were having chats about how to do these audiobooks, how to have the emotion in those books, and
yeah,
you
but
know,
it's
that's what
machine
happened.
learning, so I
So
don't know.
this is a great discussion. We could go on and on and on with this, and I love it. I love discussions on books on whatever the topic is. One of the things we had planned for tonight was John to read from his book. So, John, we have about 5 minutes left, 4 minutes left. So, if you're ready, let's do that now, and then we'll just have a quick close afterwards.
Okay, I'll make this really quick. I just have a page of that I wanted to read to show you that even in a very hardcore science fiction novel, it might make you see cross-eyed a little bit if you're not really scientifically oriented. There are sensitive passages, to our point, that you need to have those to kind of bring some relevancy to, you know, to everybody so they can associate to it. So just to set the scene up a little bit, this is the woman that I was talking about, that he had really been in a platonic nightmare with her for many, many months to years before they finally had a tryst, and then it would be the last time he ever saw her. So this is just the scene that runs up into that. So with no further ado, I just want to set the stage, and I'll just do this reading here, okay?
Okay.
All right. One night at long last it happened. They finished dinner and found themselves upon his balcony as the desert moon shone brightly above. He stood in quiet consternation as her comforting elocution was in harmony with his philosophies of life and love as usual. He finally, at long last, drew the courage. "Christine," he whispered. She suspended her sentence, giving him an opportunity. "I love you," he said. "Yes, I know. I love you too." No, looking directly into her eyes. He reached down and cloistered her hands inside his. "I mean," he whispered, "we're standing out here under these stars alone, and I love you. Don't you understand?" He abruptly released her hands and stepped to the balcony rail. He was in wait for the ultimate horror and changed the subject quickly. "Listen, I don't want you to go. I know I told you how excited I was for you and your trip." He turned slowly around only to find the moonlight reflecting discreetly from the corner of her eye. Beneath the trace betrayed her reaction to his omission. He reached with his thumb and dried it. "And I'm happy for you. Don't you know that? I'm happy for you." Very gently adding, "I've always been happy for you." "Oh, Colton, God damn it," she exclaimed. "Not now." And he just cut her off. "But I'm afraid, okay? I'm afraid, I guess, of not having you here with me anymore." A moment later, her hand came upon his nape, then ran slowly down over the contours of his shoulder. His legs felt sapped of strength as her other hand encouraged him to turn back around to face her. Staring deep into his eyes, "Oh my God, look at that. There's moonlight shining off your eyes." Her breast pressed into his torso as she laid the side of her face upon the contours of his upper chest, and within the moment came the warm sensation of her relaxed lips upon his neck. "Oh, Colton," she murmured. At last, on this night, their connection was a discovery that took the least effort of all.
There.
So that's just a little sample of how you can maybe embed a little bit of love romance into circuitry and wires and mathematical formulas.
Absolutely, that's great. And I know
I don't know if my reading was good, by the way. I tried to make it a little bit more less than formulaic and a little bit more.
I better not stand up, you know.
You did great. You did great. So, Zach, anything in closing?
No, that was great. Actually, I forgot about how Colton his stuff there. I was, I mean, you know,
You like the way he operates, though?
John's far more cerebral than I am. I'm a bit more sort of caveman in my style, you know. A bit more direct.
Oh, no, dude. I admire you.
Athena,
With a good clubbing now and then, but you know.
anything you want to say in closing, Athena?
Well, I just have to say, people shouldn't say that romance is dead or that romance books are not good to read, because there's all sorts for everybody. And really, love is the most powerful force in the universe. So why not try a romance book as well?
Absolutely, absolutely.
You
Or
know, it's true. I've been having trouble with the relationship recently, and I've been very, very angry, and my indignation knows no bounds. But you know what? It's always ephemeral, and I always come back to missing this person. So
Yeah.
I know that that's the one that, to your point, Athena, it just, you live through it. It proves it to you. One works over the long haul, one doesn't. You know.
well, this has been
A
absolutely.
fisherman must cast his net far and wide, John.
We could talk all night about different topics, especially when it comes to books, and I love it. I could be here. So it is 6:30, and that's the time. Well, 6:30 in Houston. That is the time we're supposed to be done. So tomorrow night we will be back again at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. So I hope we see you all back here tomorrow night. We'll have different authors talking about different topics. All of the authors are from the RockHill Publishing. And one of the missions and visions of RockHill Publishing and James Hill, the founder, is new artists, helping new authors get started. And I think that's just huge. And I'm so glad that that Amy and I get to be a part of that. So thank you all tonight. Thank you for joining us. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel and go watch the other videos and see about some of the other authors.
Can I just say one thing? It's a very interesting thing we're going to do tomorrow, which will be fun.
What are we doing tomorrow, Zach?
We're reading things tomorrow. We're reading the book, and there'll be some interesting emotions along with artificial intelligence.
Oh wow, can't wait. So we'll see you guys all tomorrow night.
Okay.
Are you going to play my